So there's a little bit of a race going on in Texas between a little-known Republican senator. You may have heard of him. His name's Ted Cruz. And he's being challenged by a sitting representative, Beto O'Rourke. So, no, it's funny. His name's not actually Beto. I guess that's a nickname or something. Because I had to double check. I'm like, what? Who is this guy? But that's just like me. Because anyway, now you may have heard of Ted Cruz, and you might even seen a picture of Ted Cruz that went kind of viral during the election. Yeah, it would be that one. Look, I will use any excuse that I can to bring out that picture because it's fucking hilarious. I love it. Just the way that he looks so sad. That is a picture of somebody who has been cucked by Donald Trump. Anyway, I'll get off that. Now, the reason that I bring up this story, right, is because there is some interesting polls that have O'Rourke possibly having a little bit of a lead. So there's a lot of caveats to these polls, of course, and I'm going to detail that. But it does reveal something very, very interesting about the race. And, of course, even about the electorate in Texas. So now this new poll, according to the International Business Times, Jake Cassano reporting on this, is that when certain questions are asked in a poll, the race tightens, and O'Rourke actually beats Ted Cruz in a poll. Fascinating. Now, this is paid for by the Democratic Political Action Committee and Citizens United. So this, of course, is obviously an anti-money in politics group. This is a group I can get behind because I'm also against corporate money or union money or any kind of large donor money in politics. I want to get it all out. I want to get the corporate money out. I want to get the union money out because that's the only way that I feel that the politicians can actually or will actually serve their constituents is if the constituents fund them and not the giant multinational corporations. But anyway, so this poll showed Ted Cruz within single digits of Beto O'Rourke. Now, when you overall in the poll, they found that Cruz was ahead of O'Rourke by 45 to 37%. Now, this is a phone poll. It has 757 voters, right, that were polled. So, look, the sample size is super small, right? So keep that in mind, right? And this is without any sort of regular question or any sort of specific questions asked. Now, one question that they asked specifically on this poll reveals a weakness of Ted Cruz, and that's his corruption. Cassano writes that some questions in the poll focused on the influence of special interest money in Texas. 53% of respondents thought that that was a major problem in the state, and only 3% said it was not a problem at all. Nearly half of those polled, 48%, think that Ted Cruz is more responsive to big campaign donors than ordinary Texans, compared to 33% who believe the incumbent senator is more responsive to ordinary Texans. So it turns out the Republicans in Texas also don't want our politicians to be corrupted by big money or special interests. Wow, amazing. Who knew? Actually, all of us knew because, look, you talk to anybody, Republican, Independent, doesn't matter. When you talk about corruption, when you talk about special interests controlling our politicians, they will respond. They will listen to you. And like, yeah, of course. Yeah, that is a big problem. Yeah, I don't like my politicians being corrupted. I don't like my politicians being bought by other people, by big companies and special interests. No, I want the politicians to represent me. So, Republicans in Texas are no different, right? Now, the advantage for Beto O'Rourke is that he's not actually taking any corporate or PAC money. In fact, a spokesperson for End Citizens United told the International Business Times, and by the way, this is a PAC, End Citizens United is, so they wanted to be very clear that they were not at all working with the O'Rourke campaign. So they did this poll independently. Now, Cruz, however, has accepted more than $1.3 million from different PACs and corporations, according to the Center for Responsive Politics. And that actually makes a big difference because in the poll, they asked, and let me go to Cassano here. He writes, when made aware of the figure and told that O'Rourke is not accepting money from PACs, O'Rourke pulled slightly ahead of Cruz, among those polled 43 to 41%. So when you tell voters, hey, Beto O'Rourke isn't taking money, Ted Cruz is taking millions and millions of dollars from PACs and special interests, who do you prefer? And Texans, by at least 2 points, and again, the margin of error is fairly large and the sample size is fairly small. Those are important caveats to note. But still, they would prefer that their politician be uncorrupted. And that is really important. Now, I also have to note another caveat, right? Full of caveats here, but I want to be clear. This could be this question could be considered a leading question, right? Now that it might end up backfiring in the end and giving you skewed results. Now, the margin of error is close enough to erase O'Rourke's lead, and give Cruz a slightly bigger lead. So again, I just want you to be aware of that. It's less about the poll itself and more about the insight that you would get from Texas voters. And that insight is that we don't want corrupted politicians. Ted Cruz has taken a lot of money from those special interests, and voters, and it doesn't matter what party you belong to, Democrats, Independents, Republicans, they hate that corruption. That's why one of the more effective things that Donald Trump campaigned on is, and you still hear it, drain the swamp, right? Now, what that means, or at least what you think it means, is ending the corruption in Washington. And so, yes, I mean, some people might have different meanings of draining the swamp. Obviously, Donald Trump had a way different meaning of draining the swamp, since he actually put more Goldman Sachs in his cabinet. But nonetheless, I think most people agree that it means ending the corruption, the special interests, right? So, unfortunately, Donald Trump, his administration is a swamp, and they're bathing in it. They love that corruption. Now, if it's one thing that unites voters, I think, across all party lines and all sections of America is that we despise the corruption in Washington, and Ted Cruz is part of that corruption, just like most of our politicians are. But anyway, as Casona finally points out, Cruz, who voted for the GOP tax bill, is one of several Republican lawmakers who stands to profit from a special provision benefiting investors in a particular type of oil and gas investment vehicle. Cruz has between $115,000 and $300,000 held in investment vehicles known as master limited partnerships, according to documents reviewed by the International Business Times in December. So he's got these investments, right, that end up getting a special deal from the tax cuts that he helped pass. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't like it when politicians pass a law that benefits them and not the rest of the American people. And he has benefited from these tax cuts by a tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, look, again, this is obvious corruption. Washington is bathing in it. It's not just Ted Cruz. It's pretty much all of our standard politicians get paid by special interests. And oftentimes Republicans and Democrats get paid by the same interests. These polls, when you ask people about money in politics, and it doesn't get asked enough, I think, in my opinion, then people are honest and they say, look, I don't want somebody who's corrupted. I don't want somebody who's bought, and I would vote for somebody who isn't bought. And so, look, if more stories go out about how Ted Cruz is bought, is corrupted, receives all this money, and his opponent doesn't, and you can apply this to all sorts of different races all across the country, there's a good chance that people who are actually uncorrupted can win these elections. Because, like I said, both parties, people from all walks of life, hate the same thing, and that's corruption. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.